I find the human memory to be really interesting because it's stupid and I hate it. No, seriously, there are people who I've known my entire life that I love and mean the world to me, but if you put a gun to my head and asked me when their birthday is, I would tell you to shoot. If I could trade any amount of the random garbage that I know about the MCU just to remember one of the 4 years of Spanish I took in high school, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Also, before you get too impressed, yes, I did take 4 years of Spanish. It was 3 years of Spanish 1. I don't know what it was specifically, but I had a really hard time with it. I think whatever stopped me from learning another language also stopped me from learning how to read music years before. I'm not saying my inability to play clarinet stopped me from being fluent in Spanish, but I think it's worth thinking of the two as being correlated and not one caused by the other. In that same way, I think if you were a greasy weirdo who did 4 years of an art in high school, you probably also went to anime conventions. And let me tell you, I did go to those anime conventions, and I remember a hell of a lot more about those than any of my time in school. I went to these events with friends that I had known for a long time, friends who told me about the things I was reading and watching. Something I'll never forget is from years before that in elementary school. Me and my buddy Matt were walking out of a class together. I looked up at him and said, I think it would be cool if there was a mecha show where they called the mechs angels. He then proceeded to tell me, that's kind of like Neon Genesis Evangelion. This was the first time I'd ever heard someone say,
Neon Genesis Evangelion.
I wouldn't watch Eva for another few years. I'd already seen some anime at that time, many of which my friend Matt told me about, usually while he was reading some manga himself. I will always have the image of him in the 6th grade pulling out volumes of fucking Negima, of all things, burned into my brain. For writing this part, I actually asked him why he had those. I guess he got them at a flea market with his parents. They just kind of looked down at them and assumed, yeah, this is like the boys Naruto, let's get him. I also asked him what his first anime was. He told me it was the boys Naruto. The topic of what was your first anime comes up a lot in anime circles and can often be a little contentious about what people consider their first. Despite watching things like Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and even Dragon Ball as early as I can remember, I don't consider any of them to be my first. I could see someone arguing that I only say that because they're popular, but that's not why. I didn't watch any of these shows consciously thinking about them as being other, like anime is. I watched Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Digimon for a multitude of reasons. I liked the way they looked. I liked the monsters. I liked the card games. I watched Dragon Ball because I liked the fighting, because I liked Piccolo. All of them were just cartoons. I didn't think they were any different from something like Justice League or Samurai Jack. In the same way, I watched a metric ton of Power Rangers, but wouldn't consider myself to be a fan of the Super Sentai genre. I don't think I'm alone in this. While not being a large test pool, I asked 10 of my friends and my one girlfriend what they consider to be their first anime. Of the 11, only one person considered Pokemon even as an option. 2 people said Naruto, 1 said Death Note, 1 for Sword Art Online, someone said Bleach, but Eureka 7 was his favorite because it was the first one he cried to. Another said Yu Yu Hakusho. A 7th person said Sailor Moon, but she'd maybe consider Puella Magi Madoka Magica more to be her first. Interestingly, a set of twins I know gave me almost totally different answers for theirs. One said Fruits Basket, the other said Black Butler, but they both also said Black Blood Brothers. My girlfriend said Ouran High School Host Club. Then finally we have my friend who said Sailor Moon or Pokemon. The question then comes to me. What do I consider my first anime? What did I watch and think, oh, this is different? A few things come to mind for me. Rave Master, Zatch Bell, for example, but before those there were 2 others, 2 that I can't comfortably say anything else came before. These shows being Inuyasha and Shinzo. Inuyasha is a well-beloved piece of pop culture at this point. Thundercat modeled clothes for Hypeland's Inuyasha collection. Something that wouldn't get a Hypeland collection is a show that I've literally never heard anyone talk about. The reason I'm making all of this, Shinzo. Shinzo is a 32-episode anime that originally aired February 5th, 2000 in Japan, and July 6th, 2002 in the United States. It's centered around the main characters of Yakumo and Mushra, with their friends Kutal and Sago trying to get Yakumo safe travel to the mythic city of Shinzo. Yakumo is possibly the last human on the planet after Earth was taken over by Anterans, a race of human-animal hybrids that renamed the Earth Antera. But rumor has it there are more humans on Shinzo. It's a story loosely based on Journey to the West, with less pig people and more catmen that turn into cards. Before I go any further, I am going to talk more about Shinzo. It's the main focus of this video, but this isn't going to be a review. I have no interest dunking on a 22-year-old kids show. As a kid, I didn't care if Shinzo had a well-paced story, good characters, or exciting action. As an adult, I certainly don't care to make a long, rambly video to tell you that it has none of those things because I just did. Instead, what I wish to do is look back on the show and figure out what about it was so appealing to me. What about Shinzo became so ingrained in my mind that after God knows how many years, I could recite the opening theme even after never looking it up. In rewatching Shinzo for this project, I haven't finished it yet. As of writing this part, I've only watched 12 of the 32 episodes. As of reading this part, I've watched 23 of the 32 episodes. Of those episodes, it's become clear why this show resonated with me. As I said, I watched a lot of Dragon Ball being another show inspired by Journey to the West. Shinzo had things I was familiar with but presented in a new way for me. It looked and sounded like shows I was already watching. The characters all had bright and distinct designs. Mushra with his purple hair and orange armor. Armor that looked like it's straight out of Spy Kids 3D Game Over. Mushra is your typical loud brash anime protagonist. His main goal is just to get Yakumo back to Shinzo. Yakumo had this otherworldly feel to her, despite her being the only human left on Earth. She is kind and forgiving and despises violence. She's a character out of time. Her father made her a hibernation pod that she slept in for 500 years to keep her safe because she has a special inner power. Kutal is the large yellow cat. He is a jovial chef motivated by his love of good food. He's like 2 steps removed from Garfield. What kid wouldn't like that? Then there's Sago with his blue Magneto-esque helmet with splashes of yellow and orange. Sago is an old friend of Mushra. He talks about romance once, and in his hyperform he's holding a flower, but we never see him talk to any women that aren't Yakumo, so it's really hard to say he has a personality. When I was a child, I always thought it was interesting that Sago's main outfit was green, even though he was the water guy. Yes, it was under that purple cape, but at the time, my biggest point of reference for this color to power character design was Pokemon and Digimon. Green was a plant color. There's Hakuba. He's the hibernation pod that Yakumo sleeps in. He just kind of starts talking one episode. Finally, we have the kittens, Rei, Sen, and Esti. They're just kind of there. Kutal is their uncle. I found them annoying as a kid, but come on, look at them. They're pretty cute. Similar to Pokemon, Digimon, and Dragon Ball, the cast of Shinzo could power up and change their form. The hyperform I mentioned earlier. Just like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dragon Ball, the cast of Shinzo could even merge together to make a newer, more powerful form. The 3 main guys, Mushra, Kutal, and Sago, can combine to form the mythic warrior, Mushrambo. When they first become Mushrambo, we are told that he is a legendary warrior that everyone knows, despite never being mentioned before his first appearance. The show really benefited from catching episodes sporadically. Anything that didn't seem to make sense could just be something you missed. Shows like Shinzo are why previously on at the start of each episode were so important. It is a kids show and most of its target audience wouldn't catch every episode in order. I knew that shows would rerun episodes when I watched it. I remember seeing a big fight scene one episode and thinking it was a possible finale, like seeing Yugi Muto face off against Atem. Shinzo was reminding me of other shows, but it wasn't reminding me of anything outside of the shows I've mentioned. The shows I never thought were different until Shinzo and, yes, Inuyasha. They made me realize what I was watching was actually different from Justice League or Samurai Jack. Sorry, this is just a side note here. I've been rewatching some episodes of Inuyasha from this, and I remember that show slightly, but importantly different from what it is. When I was a kid, I thought it was a cool action show with Inuyasha as the main character. Any of the romance stuff with Kagome just kind of seemed like a C-plot and not like one of the major parts of the show. Like, Inuyasha is as much a romance as it is an action show. It's also the only good isekai. Shinzo had a unique aspect to its world building of when an Ateran dies, they become end cards. A card that contains the Ateran's soul, basically. If the card is destroyed, only then the Ateran actually dies. Aterans can actually come back from being a card, but the card can also be used by other Aterans to gain new powers. Like I mentioned before, I loved that Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Digimon all had card games. I loved any show that had a games to life aspect. I got into Bakugan, Beyblades, Battle Beat-em-on, Chaotic, and Duel Masters. I even like Dinosaur King. I didn't even know Dinosaur King was a video and card game until right now. I imagine Shinzo could have been a card game. I never thought about what the logistics of how that game would play, but I wondered what if, and why wouldn't I? This was another cool show with creatures that would turn into cards. These end cards weren't just an insulated one-off like the card game-based Greed Island arc of Hunter x Hunter. The end cards were inseparable from that show's identity, and even if they never led to a card game I could play and have, this part of the show was still there. Also, just look at the end cards for a sec. They're kind of really cute and funny. Like, they look like little passport photos. My girlfriend doesn't even have a photo of me that nice. In my time rewatching Shinzo, I came to understand why it appealed to me so much, but something I still don't understand or think I ever will is how much I loved this show. I am not exaggerating when I say I would think of Shinzo at least once every year since I first watched it. As I went back through these episodes, certain moments would stand out to me. These were the episodes I did remember, the episodes I watched. But here's the thing, it was only moments from like 7 episodes. I have possibly spent 2 decades of my life hooked on some show that I watched like a fifth of. The time I spent originally watching and obsessing over this show was like 6 weeks of my life. That does kind of make sense though. Watching these on release, I would have been 5 years old. 6 weeks to a 5-year-old probably feels a lot longer than a year does to me now. That time is super formative. If I didn't spend those 6 weeks fixating on Shinzo, I don't know if I'd enjoy the things I enjoy now. Shinzo was a weird, flawed little show that honestly was really hard to find things out about. It wasn't very popular by any means. It wasn't even on Toonami or Adult Swim. I saw it because it was on the channel Jetix.
Here's what we have next on Jetix. It's Beyblade, followed by Shinzo, right here on Toon Disney.
I didn't know anyone who watched Shinzo or most shows on Jetix. The channel felt like something that was for me. It was my special little go-to that I could watch weird little interesting shows like Get Ed, Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go, or even Witch. Looking back on it, I actually watched quite a bit of stuff on there. They had Oban Star Racer. I like looking into weird little nooks and crannies to find new things. You can end up finding something that really speaks to you. It doesn't even have to be good, it just has to be something that makes you happy. It could unlock something new in your interest that you may have never gotten into otherwise. I can comfortably say that Shinzo is bad, but if I never watched it, I may have never watched something like Devilman Crybaby, which I think is fantastic. What was your first anime really is a big question, not just because it's contentious, but because it's also very personal. That first show is going to be something that you hold dear to you. It will build your interest in what you look for later down the road. Even if you don't talk about it every day or even think about it, it will be something you never forget. Thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun revisiting this stuff. I wanted to have Shinzo done, like be done watching it by the time I had this video completely finished. I haven't yet. If I do actually get around to finish it, I might actually write like a little review, just a little fun, just like as a little companion piece to this, because that's it's not getting better, but it's going places I didn't expect it to. Yeah, I have thoughts on that, and yeah, again, thank you for watching. If you want to share your story, I would be genuinely very interested in what your first anime was. I had a lot of fun asking my friends that, and I would be interested to hear what yours was, so you can leave that in the comments if you want. And yeah, thank you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.